A former freshman All-American has entered the transfer portal. How big a loss is this for the Bears? Let's get Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to a bonus edition of Locked On Baylor. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. Real quick one for you. Appreciate you guys making this your first and second and third listen today and every day. Just a little bonus episode as I've got a crossover for Friday's show talking about the Houston basketball game on Saturday. But Richard Reese has announced he has entered the transfer portal. This is breaking news on Thursday night. Once setting records for Baylor, a guy who we thought was going to be an all Big 12 running back representing Baylor for years to come, has now entered the transfer portal with a couple years of eligibility left, at least one. But you never know with these COVID years and things like that. He might have more than one. But this is kind of the end of an odd career at Baylor, where it started out burning really brightly and kind of dimmed in the 2 years since his spectacular freshman season. And now Baylor's in a position where they have a really good stable of running backs right now, and certainly in the near future. And Richard Reese probably wasn't going to be a huge part of that. So he enters the transfer portal. And I know that's a weird feeling for those of us who watched that season in 2022 when he set the Baylor freshman record for rushing yards this season, 972 yards, man. Like, think of how great that season just was from Bryson Washington to get to 1,000 yards. Like, Richard Reese was very nearly there in year one. And he was a real bright spot on that team that was pretty disappointing. The team that started the season ranked number 10 in the nation and ended 6-7, losing to a service academy in their rival's home stadium in a bowl game. But really, the shining light of that season was Richard Reese and the future that he had with this offense. And little did we know that was way the high point. In that 3-9 season, you only get 66 carries, 300 yards, and then this year, even less, 241 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. Really didn't have much of an impact on this team. It really became the running game of Bryson Washington and Dawson Pendergrass. And when Bryson Washington goes down in the bowl game in the first quarter, Richard Reese only gets 2 carries in that game. So I think that just goes to show you. You look at the game log. I mean, it's the writing was on the wall. 2 for 8, 3 for 9, 2 for 8, 1 for 1, 1 for none. Like, he just was no longer a part of the offense pretty much after that Air Force game. And remember, was not getting many carries last year. Only got 8 more carries last year than he did this year. Obviously had that game against West Virginia with the 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. And it looked like, 24, that's going to be the comeback season for Richard Reese. I know I said it on this show of like, hey, this is going to be a big Richard Reese year. It has to be. He's going to be a part of this offense. In fact, I think I said something like, I love Bryson Washington, but he's going to need to take some time to get back integrated into this thing. And I was wrong on both fronts. Bryson Washington took that job and ran with it, no pun intended. And Richard Reese just kind of fell more into the background. And the career at Baylor kind of ends with a whimper, especially from what we saw from him his first season on campus. It is an interesting timing. I honestly thought he would have entered the portal right after the end of the regular season, just that from what we see as fans, how much attention he's getting, what the pipeline looks like. Obviously, there's more to these decisions, but we see a running back duo that's dominating the Big 12 that doesn't include him, and a couple of 4-star running backs coming in the next couple recruiting cycles. It just didn't look like a spot for Richard Reese to succeed, but he ends up waiting until March. So kind of a weird situation. I don't know. Obviously, he can't really join a team and play spring football now. He's going to have to wait until after the spring game. And if he does only have 1 year of eligibility left, that could put him in a tough bind, but with the message that he put on social media, he said it was a lot of thoughts and prayers going into it, as most of these guys say, but he certainly was a guy who seemed to really love Baylor, and he could have left a couple of different times, right? He could have entered the portal after 22 when they were 6-7 and his stock was really, really high. He could have entered it last year after they were 3-9 and looked directionless, or maybe no good direction for that team, it felt like. And he had just, in the last game of the season, put up some great tape on the special teams. And he could have left after the regular season ended this year. And here we are in March 25 is when he decides to go. So he was a guy that clearly really loves playing for Baylor. And he's someone I bumped into once or twice. And I know everyone who knew him would say that, because, I would ask people around the program, like, why is Richard Reese still here? Not in a bad way, just like, man, he can go and get some shine somewhere else. And they said, the guy actually really, really likes to be here. And yeah, the career didn't quite go the way we thought it was going to at Baylor, but Bears are in a good position now. He went back-to-back years with a very diminished role compared to his first year. And I might be wrong. Maybe someone could point it out to me, but I don't remember him ever putting up a stink. I don't ever remember a cryptic Instagram post. I don't remember any kind of quote that would have led to that, and of course, when he would be available to the media in the offseason this past year, several reporters asked, hey, your role really went down last year from the year before. And he was like, you know what? We got a great running back room. Love working with Keenan Hall. We're going to have a good season. He didn't ever put up a stink about it. He was never a diva about it. In fact, we were being divas for him last year. Remember? I certainly was. I know a bunch of you fans were too, after the two kickoff return touchdowns against West Virginia. We were like, Dave needs to be fired. He can't even play the right guys. And now here we are, 16 months later, and he's in the portal. So tip of the cap to Richard Reese. That 22 season is something we won't forget, but certainly looks like a log jam at that position, and one that obviously he didn't feel he was going to fit into going forward. So interested to see where he lands. He's a guy who didn't put on a ton of size from his freshman year, still listed at 5'9", 181. And for the way he runs, it seemed to not kind of fit, right? He ran really hard. He ran pretty close to what Bryson Washington does at a smaller size. And so he's got, I think, a lot of tread left on the tires. Interested to see what the market is for him. If it's Power 4, Group of 5, how much of a role is he going to have year one? It does intrigue me to see where he ends up. But of course, we wish him nothing but the best. But certainly, yeah, a career that didn't quite pan out the way we thought. We thought he was going to be Bryson Washington, and now we have Bryson Washington and Dawson Pendergrass, and certainly a good stable coming in, led by guys like Caden Knighton. So not much of a spot, no room at the end necessarily in this stable of running backs for Richard Reese. So he hits the portal. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Did Richard Reese live up to the hype? What do you think? Where do you think he will go next? What do you think went into this decision? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. We know a lot of you that watch every day still are not subscribed. Do me a favor, subscribe, like the video. It helps out a lot. Or you can find us wherever you find your podcasts as well. We got a crossover talking basketball, Bears and the Cougs coming up on Saturday night. We'll talk about that tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.